The prophet's promise of a one-day glory is what lays the premise of our Christmas story. Though from the promise of a king to the actual birth of Jesus, there were 4 centuries of waiting. One day was 400 years in the making. But after that pregnant pause begins our story, starting with a virgin who's pregnant with our King of Glory. Young Mary met an angel who explained God's ploy to restore the whole creation through her unborn boy. Mary, did you know? Yes, she knew. And very soon her husband-to-be Joseph did too. And the pair, now aware, stayed a pair though Mary grew. Soon a census was called, and to Bethlehem they went. Of course, this was no coincidence. It was our God that sent them to that town to make true what the prophets had said about the smallest clan of Judah, Bethlehem, meaning house of bread. Nothing fancy, not wine and cheese, no, plain humble bread. Not a town built for crowds, it soon ran out of beds, leaving our young couple to shelter in a shed. No palace for their unborn king, but at least a roof over his head. So, born that night in that bread-level town, sweet baby Jesus, a king with no crown. So the 2 of them, now turned 3, travelled home to Nazareth. This fulfilled part of a prophecy that ends in Jesus' death. Nazareth means sprouting branch or new shoot from old tree. Jesus of Nazareth, a new branch growing out of a dead family tree, a chance at new life in the form of a little baby. Jesus, from the line of David, sent to earth to save it. Promised by prophets, the Prince of Peace. The promise became flesh and lived among us. He became lowly, but perfectly holy. A babe born to a virgin teenager, born in a stable and laid in a manger. From bump to babe and to Mary's boy child, Jesus quickly grew into a man, no longer tender and mild, but revolutionary and wild, healing many, feeding thousands, teaching the truth, freeing sinners with God's own holy power. This young shoot grew to be a carpenter by trade, a living man, the Son of God, doomed to in a tomb be laid. Hands rough from woodwork, yet just soft enough to be pierced by nails and nailed to a cross. The new branch, the hope of the world, spread his arms out wide, breathed his last, a tomb was made ready, and they laid King Jesus inside. On the night of his birth, a bright star shone. On the day that he died, all that light was gone. But hope was not lost. Jesus rolled the tombstone aside. He came back to life and he ascended into the sky. His blood washed away the stain of our sin. And when we believe, we're made holy through him. Jesus is the reason for the season. He is the reason for our freedom from our own treason, because there was no pleasing a holy God without an appeasing act. So God sent his Son, and that is the reason we sing tidings of comfort and joy. Because when he rose from the grave, he beat death and ascended into glory, and that is the whole point of our Christmas story. So we are in danger if we leave Jesus in that manger simply because the rest of his story is a great deal stranger. When we leave him as a child, we lose part of the story. When we confine him to a crib, we rob him of his glory. The glory of God is an ugly wooden cross. And at the foot of that cross is our comfort and our joy.